fashion like you would do if you're running a cloud. Right now, it works on Intel processors primarily, but they're working on AMD and ARM support, so all the common ones you see deployed in clouds.
Well, if you want to learn more about Firecracker, because I have a sense this is really just the beginning of something that's going to be bigger and bigger, you can go get a few resources. In our show notes, go to techsnap.systems/391. I'd say maybe start with their GitHub page. They've set up their own org. They're trying to build a legitimate community around that project over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity. It seems like they're doing it really all out in the open. You can also join their Firecracker Slack workspace if you like Slack or want some immediate feedback from the developers. It's Apache 2.0 licensed. There's also some BSD stuff from their heritage. It's actually started off as using the Chromium OS virtual machine manager.
What?
Yes, that's right.
It started from Chromium OS.
It started from Chromium OS, yes. It was a Rust virtual machine manager. They've included some of that and then added a whole bunch more to build Firecracker.
Oh, of course, it all comes back to Rust.
They do have a pretty strict charter, seemingly, because they want this to be a focused project. But if you want to contribute along those goals, they welcome contributions. So go try it out. Thanks for going to techsnap.systems/contact to send us whatever you want. War stories, comments, questions, they're all great.
Yep. Yeah. Before we get to the questions, though, and we have a fun twist with today's question. Yes. We should do some follow-up because Wes Payne, reporting in from the BGP desk here at Jupiter Broadcasting, he's always watching the BGP headlines.
The BGP beat.
He's a BGPer, and looks like there could be some good news from the open BGP camp.
That's right, your favorite software for doing BGP from the team at OpenBSD. They make some great internet software, that part is for sure. Unfortunately, OpenBGPD hadn't seen a lot of use, at least at the major internet exchange points. And, we've got internet speeds just keep going up, and it had some performance limitations that just meant it wasn't seeing as much use. And that meant the other main competitor, Bird, the Bird Internet Routing Daemon.
Oh yeah, everybody knows about Bird. Bird's the word.
Yes, it's pretty much the standard.
It's the word, you might say.
But it was really the only standard. And that meant we had a monoculture. And you don't want to see that at some of the most important servers that actually, let machines route to one another through BGP. So there is some good news, though, thanks in part to the RIPE Community Fund. That's the Regional Internet Registry for Europe, of course.
Obviously.
They've funded development of OpenBGPD, and we've already got a lot of improvements. One thing that you might be asking right up the front is like, okay, well, does it run? I don't, maybe I'm not an expert in running or administering OpenBSD. It's a great operating system, but I've already got Linux servers doing other things. Portability is one of the things they're working on. Also working on RPKI-based BGP origin validation, which we've talked about on previous episodes as being an important tactic that more people exchanging internet traffic need to do so that bad routes don't get advertised to places they shouldn't and then cause big problems for major companies.
Powerful.
And of course, they've also fixed a bunch of the performance stuff. So some of the limitations, the scaling problems have been resolved. It's not perfect yet, but you can get a lot of these improvements already in OpenBGP 6.4. I think we'll see a brighter future for our internet with just a little bit more diversity.
That's Wes Payne from the Weather Desk for the Internet. Now, moving on to Anton's email, he says, I purchased a server on eBay, and it came with an LSI 9260 4i RAID card. Unfortunately, it doesn't have an HBA or JBOD or any other similar mode that lets it pass the disk through without some level of RAID.
Womp.
I know I could just do each drive as a RAID 0, but I would just prefer not to do that. I want to get an equivalent HBA, but I'm not very familiar with them. After a bit of research, it seems that the LSI 921141 may be the equivalent. I just want to double check with someone more knowledgeable so I didn't make a mistake or run into a gotcha. Thanks and keep up the great work. Man, this is really the kind of thing that, Alan would have a great answer for.
He sure would. And thankfully, we have been visited by the mysterious Alan Jude. He's always lurking somewhere on the internet. And in this case, he popped up to answer Anton's question.
That's one of the little secrets of the TechSnap program. Alan, the gentleman that he is, from time to time, is still answering questions that people send into the show, which is so awesome. So what did Alan say?
Some of the LSI cards can be cross-flashed to have an HBA mode. I don't think that's the case for the 9260, unfortunately. You can check servethehome.com for tutorials and see if there's one that works for you. I mostly use I being Alan, of course, the 9207-8i, but a 9211-4i or 8i should get the job done as well. The FreeNAS forums also have guides on how to get the cheapest possible LSI card.
Nice. Thanks, Alan. The tip there he gave, too, we should put a link to that in the show notes. Servethehome.com. Thank you, Alan. We'll have a link to that in the show notes, too. That's a good one. How cool is that? It's not guaranteed Alan Jude's going to read your email and respond, but from time to time,
he just might. That brings us to the end of today's episode, but before we go, just a few final thoughts.
How about a few fun projects to leave folks with this week?
One story we didn't cover this week. If you're interested, we'll have a link to it, but there's been turns out Sennheiser headset software, they were installing a trusted cert in your cert store on your operating system, and then it was possible to extract that key from said software.
Yeah, and it was software maybe you would set up to like optimize the headphones, and apparently it needed that, and it
turns out headphone makers not great software manufacturers.
Apparently, from what I read, at least, it's not getting fixed necessarily. You should just go pull it. Perhaps that's changed, but yeah, like Wes said, we'll have a link in the show notes. So that came out of that, huh? That's
right. So that brings up the possibility of man-in-the-middle attacks, and if you want to learn more about a man-in-the-middle attack, this tool could be pretty helpful because it's like a really self-contained system. You can go spin up a server somewhere to test it on, and then go, get to town, start playing with it if you want to understand the mechanism. Again, use it responsibly, try to learn, but I think that it is so well developed. They've got a lot of instructions there on the GitHub page to actually go get the software working and all the various pieces. It could be very educational.
I bet. Now, speaking of doing deep dives, what if you want to do a deep dive into exactly what is in that Docker image?
You've included a whole bunch of things. There's multiple from lines. Who knows how many different base images are involved? Or, maybe you're just trying to optimize things. You have a production image. You want to make sure things are small. You're not sure where each big file is coming from and all the layers. Enter Dive, a tool for exploring a Docker image, layer contents, and discovering ways to shrink your Docker image.
It's a command line tool, but I really appreciate the way they lay out a Docker image. It's a funny thing to say about a command line tool, but it's a really good visual way to show how deep the rabbit hole really goes. And some of these container images, like, I would love to see this go beyond just Docker images, really. This is a great system that why not just take a look at? Like Wes said, one you build yourself or a rando one you get off the internet.
It's also stupid easy to get. They've already got Debs, RPMs. It's in the AUR. They've got it in Brew for the Mac. It's just Go, so you can go get it with Go Get. And of course, there's a Docker image.
I love it. Now, just a reminder, over the next couple of weeks, our schedule is a bit hectic. We're going to be traveling to Texas for a company party down at Linux Academy. We're looking forward to that.
I believe we'll be doing some work while we're there.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Oh, that's true too. And then the week after that, I'm flying to Denver to go hang out with the folks at System 76 to see their new rigs.
Ooh, fancy.
And tour their factory.
Nice.
So the recording schedule is going to be a little hit and miss over the next couple of weeks. We're going to basically try our hardest to have an episode, but don't worry. If we miss a week, you'll still get every episode if you go to techsnap.systems/subscribe. We say that every week, and that's the truth. There will be something. The thing is, we have huge plans for the show in the near future. We're really excited about some of the future possibilities we have with some of the training architects in the Linux Academy staff that are really deep experts on some of these topics. Like Firecracker, for example, is something that there will probably eventually be Linux Academy courseware on. And at that point, Linux Academy will have hired somebody to be a full-time expert on that topic. And they bring them in usually from the industry, from Amazon or from another production industry if they can. And we have plans to work with some of those people in the future to help shape some of the content to make it even deeper and more informed, more focused. But also, there's going to be a transition happening where eventually I'll transition out of the show, someone else will join Wes, and it'll be a more reoccurring, stabler co-host who's maybe not traveling over the place and trying to do a bunch of stuff in the community these days. So that's just as my focus changed. And we thought that could be an opportunity to make the show even better. Go back to some of our roots, look at what made the show great, and then make TechSnap great again? I didn't mean to go there, but that's where it went.
Keep TechSnap great. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. I think there's a lot that we're going to learn in the next year. There's lots of good contributions coming, and there's surely going to be a lot of interesting stories to cover.
Yeah, I think the biggest shift for us is we are no longer driven by an ad model. So that means the TechSnap show, which was sort of built around that, was built really for advertisements in a way. It was a show that came along when it came time for us to grow the network, and we built it so that it could accommodate sponsors. But that's changing, and that's no longer a requirement we have now that we're part of Linux Academy. And there's also a team of people behind us now that we can use to make the show even better. And we can perhaps afford to bring somebody in who's established, who's working in the industry, who's really up to date and current on all this stuff, and can bring a lot of value into the show to match Wes's current experience and Wes's deep knowledge and really make the show just, I think, I don't want to say much more because it's all still getting firmed up, but I'm just really excited about the direction it's going and some of the big plans we have. So if we do miss a couple of weeks here and there, trust me.
Yeah, stay with us. We're working
working harder than ever on the show. It really is. It's just holidays and travel schedules, and we apologize. If we do miss a couple of weeks here and there, we're going to try not to. Best effort.
And of course, that does bring us finally to the end of this week's TechSnap program. Thank you very much for joining us.
And we'll see you in the feed.
Sorry, it's just tickled me, that has.
They have way too much political power. Nobody wants to live there. Flyover states.
User Error 53. I'm Joe.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Dan.
We're back, and there have been people signing up to the forum at community.error.show, so well done, everyone. And there's some good suggestions for topics and Ask Errors on there, and also some good feedback. There was one particularly long feedback about the having kids thing last time, which I just haven't really formed my thoughts on how to reply yet, so I'm not ignoring you. It's just I don't know how to reply to such a heavy topic.
I'm totally ignoring you.
Well, good.
I'm not really. I'm exactly the same position. I just read it and think, oh, gosh, that's a long one. Can you break it down tweet size, and then I'll reply to each of those?
Yeah. Can you make it a yes or no?
Yeah.
You ever get those kind of emails like that where it's like, if this were a real short email, I would reply. But because it's such a long, like thought out email that I have to dedicate time, I have to sit down and, you know, I have to think about things now.
But also then you feel guilty for not replying sooner.
Yeah.
Because they've invested a huge amount of time.
Right.
Yeah. So remember that you don't have to have the hashtag Ask Error questions be about Linux. Linux ones are fine, but they can be about anything you like. So do remember you can use that hashtag on Twitter and Telegram, and you can email us and stuff like that. But speaking of emails not getting replied to, there's a reason why things like Twitter are massively popular, because you've only got, 280 is it now, characters, and you just necessarily can only ask questions and make points that are easy to reply to. So that kind of segues nicely into this first question then. Is social media a good thing? And you posed this question, Alan, didn't you?
Yeah, I went out for a curry with some friends who I don't know particularly well. They're dancing dads. They don't dance themselves. They have daughters who dance and sons who dance at the dance school that my daughter goes to. And they said, oh, let's go out for a curry. And they invited me to a WhatsApp group or Facebook or whatever. And we chatted, and it very quickly degenerated into sending gifts backwards and forwards. And then eventually we, sorted out a date and we arrived, and we're sat in the pub, have a few drinks, then go and sit in the curry house, and everyone gets out their phones. And I realized this is not news to anyone, and everyone's seen this recently, but it was quite depressing that, you sit there and a bunch of people I don't know very well, and we're having a chat, and some people have got their phones out and chatting to their wives. It's like, dude, you want a dad's night out having a curry with the lads, and you're chatting away to your wife on your phone. I'm sure there might be important subjects that you need to discuss with your wife, but, in the past, you could be disconnected and you could sit and have a curry with friends, and the only people who mattered were the people in the room. And now that doesn't happen. And there's all the old tropes of social media and phones have killed the art of conversation. But the same thing happens with social media. Once you've had these conversations on WhatsApp and Facebook and stuff, nobody's got a conversation for the curry house. And I find that's a bit sad.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree about that. I think that there's a lot more people now that are setting boundaries, at least when I talk to a lot of my friends. There's quite a number of people that permanently have their phone on Do Not Disturb so that they feel like they're in control of when they check their notifications and messages. Or I had a group of friends that if we'd go out, the rule was everybody would put their phones on the center of the table, and the first person that touched the phone had to buy the first round. Games like that. I definitely, as far as dating, decided a while ago that I don't want to be social media friends with anybody I'm dating because it's boring when you go out on a date with someone and you've already seen everything they've done for the past week. You don't have anything to really talk about. You already know everything. It's not fun and exciting anymore, and you can't really get to know them. You just kind of read the synopsis of them online.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the grumpy old man in me. And I'm just as guilty as everyone else. Like I will sit on my phone all the time as well. And I feel that we've lost something. Like I've lamented the fact that in the past, if I wanted to go out with my mates, before the days of cell phones, we'd phone one of the guys and say, oh, we're going to be in this pub. And we'd figure it out. We didn't have to use Google Maps. We didn't have to use location tracking services or instant messages to find out which pub everyone was in. You'd just phone Dave's mum, and Dave's mum would pass on the message to everyone else, and you'd all end up in the pub, and then you'd have conversation. And none of you had spoken to each other for the entire week because you'd all been at work in different places. You all get together and you have tons to talk about. And like you say now, you don't.